let's get into exploring, actually playing with the combat system. I gotta say, a lot of times this is happening more and more frequently, I think, where I prep a game, I'm ready to play, and it's a tough move from that. Okay, I've read the rules, I've even done a video on it to begin it, actually pulling the trigger and starting to move some pieces. And you know, I know a lot of gamers, board gamers at least, express this kind of feeling. And once upon a time, when I was more active on the forum or whatever, I'd just be like, well, you just got to do it, you know? That's about as fucking useful as telling me I just got to do the things I got to do around the house or in my personal life or whatever. It's been a little easier for me to tackle games than, you know, other things in life that are similar. What the hell? I'm just making sure. That looked like it was written there as opposed to printed on the map. But man, I totally empathize with the feeling, this oh, how do I, you know, actually start moving some pieces? There's people who talk about setting up whole games and cleaning them up. I may have done that once or twice even, I don't know. But it's weird because, you know, 10 years ago or whatever, maybe I had kind of a holier than thou type attitude about it, which is totally unreasonable because everything else in my fucking life I completely put off. And I feel the feeling here. I totally do. I totally feel the feeling in terms of, yeah, I don't want to get started something, you know, it's almost like you're taking a step that you know is going to cost too much. You don't really express it that way in your head. Anyway, this should be on another video. So let's get started. Nobody's going to withdraw. This is just a tactical scenario. There's nothing else. Missile burn and movement. There is no missile burn. There are no missiles here, so we ignore that completely. Joint burn phase. This is where the fleets start programming what they want to do, movement-wise. Now, there's something problematic for the defender who had to create kind of a shell around their forces. They're going to have to align at strength 0 or at speed 0. They're fine. They can operate as fire groups and whatnot. Just perfect, and I set myself up for that. But if I start moving, it all has to be the same vector. I'm not sure it's worth burning. In fact, I probably should have just had everybody stacked in the same cube. But I'm really not sure it's worth moving because it's costing me something. But these guys definitely do want to move. So I'm going to figure out a burn for them. Do they want to come at a particularly high speed? Again, it's kind of like, why? You know, what is the tactics? What is there in this? Well, it's get kind of close and start picking shit off. All right, kind of close. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Looks okay to me. So I think nobody is going to burn. I was born to burn, man. Okay, so screw it. Missile and fighter salvo, again, not in the game here. Combat phase, we're too far away to shoot. Repair phase, nothing was damaged. Joint movement, that's going to be, and I really should have, because this is on the x-axis, I really should have another marker here just to remind me that the task force is moving there as well. So 2, 3, 4, we move, and all of these go forward. We're now in range that at least some fire combat is going to be available. Shift these forward. Technically, those should all be under the same counter, but one of the advantages I have of a formation is that I would rather not have to mark them all. So what I could do to make this a little clearer, this is tough though, is I could take the task force marker. So when it's playing in the strategic game, one task force is going to be on the space that I'm in, and the other task force marker is going to be on the stack that's in that space. just as a brief thing. So I'm going to have two of them, and neither of them is really necessary. I can mark the space the battle's in. So I could do something like this to cover it if I want it, and maybe delineate it some other way. I'm not sure, because ships could conceivably have zero moment, and I don't know. But right now it's everybody, and I'm just going to do it in the open since I'm playing solo and I don't really have to worry. All right, to the next turn, withdrawal. No, we're not withdrawing. Missile burn, joint burn. Okay, now it's time to think. Again, the defender, I don't see firing off burn. That's going to get me away from this base. What about these guys? You know, my same strategy kind of goes. I don't see a value to swooping in at high speed or anything. I'm just trading shots with these things and hoping I outnumber them, so screw it. And this is where the problem comes. There aren't, especially right now, without missiles and fighters, there aren't any differentiating features between these fleets, really. I could look, there may be some, but it seems so limited. So we've got a catapult here, which is going to have heavy, heavy firepower. That's one advantageous thing. They've got a base which has heavier firepower even than the catapult does. Makes sense. You know, but I got to take the base out to do anything here. What else do we have? These are miners. Both sides have miners. Only the Ares Corporation has the transports. The transports are the weakest and fastest of them. Could I do something clever with those weaker, faster ships? I don't think so. I think they're just more firepower. It's kind of like in SFB. Quite often what I find is in fleet combats, it just really ends up being a whole bunch of a formation of ships or whatever. It could all be in one stack, although there are disadvantages in that game to doing that. And just concentrate fire and unleash all your firepower at the same time, pretty much. I'm not, basically, except for in that game, there are some races that have specifically different types of capabilities to their weapons. So you end up playing to those different weapons. But here, right now, all the weapons are exactly the same. So you're going to get kind of a colorless play compared to the SFB experience or whatever, which I used to really like. It wouldn't be terribly exciting to run a fleet of Federation ships against a fleet of Federation ships, or a fleet of Klingons against Klingons, because they all have the same weapons ranges and whatnot. I found very little value to anything in formations going with that system, except the idea of putting lighter stuff in front to shoot down missiles and stuff like that. So when we see missiles come in, we may see some more interest in playing out the tactical game. The other thing is, the tactical game is different in terms of the results that it's going to give, as far as I can tell. Okay. So yeah, we're not going to do anything. No salvo. It's combat time. Who gets to shoot first? Well, we got a problem. We don't have any fucking dice. I'll be back. Need a lot of dice. All right. Odd Ares gets first fire. Even the Martians do. Odd Ares gets first fire. Oh, there was something else I needed. I needed cubes. Shit. I thought I had a pile of them. They're downstairs. I'll be back again. My ankle's bugging me too much to walk up and down the stairs. Let's do this. All right. What do I have? I have 6 ships. That gives me 2 fire groups. One of them has a really big firepower. That is the catapult. That has a 4 firepower. I'm told 5 and 7 are the good firepower values. So 4... transports give me 3 each, so that gets me like up to 10. Miners are weaker with only 2 each. So let's fire off. Let's put some of these down. Let's fire off 4. I could put it on top, but I don't want to. 5, 6. See, this is all one formation. Fire groups just have to be the same formation. They don't necessarily have to be within formation of their fire. They don't necessarily have to be able to be defined as a formation in and of themselves. What was I going to do? Transports are powerful firepower. Let's think about the transports instead. They might be more interesting. The transports have 3 each. The miners have 2. So that would be 3, 6, 7, 8. Well, let's just do this. All right. So that was 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 as well. Is that right? I guess so. All right. We'll fire an 8. We'll pick this off because it's the closest thing. But the base. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Out of range. Excellent. Okay, so everything's going to fire at that one ship. So that's going to be plus 8 to my die roll. I get a 14, which gets me to the top of the chart. The range was 8, I believe. 1, 2, from all of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think I miscounted 8. Range is 8. On a 6, I destroy them. I get an R. R is a repair capacity damaged over on 227. Now, I gotta move this because I can't write on this thing. Put it up there. Confused because, I dropped the camera and it's like, I should either turn it off or... Okay. 227 on the Martian side has just taken, and this is hard to see, tiny, tiny little 227 is this in very light print, has just taken its repair capacity destroyed. Which means, actually, in the campaign game, it's not allowed to repair between scenarios. It doesn't indicate massive damage that requires production to fix. Now we're on here, and our distance is, and the reason I'm just counting hexes or cubes, squares for distance, is that we're all on the same z-plane. So I don't have to do anything too tricky. I might have to do something tricky with some of these, though. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I know that nothing on this line is within range. So only this one ship, the 227, has any firepower. I'll shoot at the catapult because might as well hit the big thing. So I look at 227's firepower and it's 2. Now, I cheated. That should have been range. That should have been at range 6 because there's a 2 range reduction for using a fire group. And I got to check my battery, but okay. So we were on the +2, which means we're a lot less likely having a big bonus. So think about that. What they said, +5 means that a 1 would get you here, but a 6 will only get you here, but you're getting a lot of coverage. +7 means that a 5 or a 6 gets you here. I don't know why they're saying 5 and 7 are special numbers. I'm not seeing it. Honestly, I like the idea of getting, well, you want to end up on these top 3 charts, and maybe that's what they're finding is the optimal proportions of that. I don't think so, though, because there's only 6 slots on each. So +2. I get to the 8 table. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hexes, yeah, or 8 squares, and no modifier here. The best I can get is a B2. I roll a 2, which causes no damage whatsoever. And you can see not a lot's happened, right? Like, consider SFB, initial volleys, they burn away shields or whatever. So this is kind of like that, this long-range combat. But there's some chance of hitting stuff, but it's very random. It's not like an SFB where, like, you burn away a few shield points and you're like, okay, well, and you get closer and closer, and eventually you get into sort of the appropriate volley range. But I have one more shot coming. I am going to have to check my battery and probably swap as well. I had a battery that was mostly filled trying to charge. I just didn't realize how close it was. Okay, so what are we at? We're at the second fire here. Now here we have to count our range. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 3. And that's going to be the further, because this is going to be 8 and 2. So we look this up, and it's going to be 8, I bet you. Three, 8, no, it's range 9. How about that? Which means we'll be at range 7 for this fire. Now I think this was 8 again. 2 and 6 is 8 again, so plus 8 on the die roll. Another shot at that. Another hit at 12. Again, getting above that, I don't know, 7 seems really valuable, because you start hitting something where you got a 1 in 6 chance of just destroying the ship. We get a 3. This was going to be out at range 7. So we miss. Would have really liked to shoot down its laser capacity. Now I could have fired off a lot of low opportunity fire, because I have so many more shots that might have been advantageous. It's kind of an interesting concept, right? Like I could have been firing off 2-point fires or whatever, just like he did. It didn't do anything, but maybe I would have gotten better than a single repair hit by doing that. I believe very strongly in concentration of fire from my SFB play and things like Talon and stuff. It just feels like you're trying to overwhelm the enemy's shielding, but there is no shielding in this. Here, lots and lots of shots might get you a better chance of hitting something. Okay, that was fire, repair. The only thing that took damage can't be repaired. So we go to joint movement, and we're again 1, 2, 3, 4. Everybody slides up. I'm going to turn the camera off. The thing here is there's no value. One of the things that makes SFB a fun game is this idea of knocking down a ship's shields. It has to turn to try to protect its shielding or its weak flank. So you end up breaking up any formations for whatever value there are by beating up on single ships. Even if you don't knock the ship out, you weaken it enough that it ends up doing something other than the other ships. So things kind of devolve more into, like, I don't know, situations where you're trying to take advantage of the damage that you've done. Here, I don't have that feeling again. I'm sitting here, everything's just as easy to hit as everything else. It's a question of the opportunity of which targets, you know, can I damage. Nothing has any kind of defensive capabilities whatsoever. They're just pure offense on them. You know, I might hit stuff that's not pure offense, but there's just nothing to differentiate these ships except, well, this is a higher value target than these. It's going to do more damage. I really ought to strike it first, right? And I ought to hit it as hard as possible. The other aspect with what I'm thinking with the SFB thing is, yeah, again, you take down a shield or something, they turn away. Now you have a maneuver desire to try to slip in and get into a direction where you can hit that shield. Or most of the ships have weaker directional shielding as well. In a similar fashion in SFB, you have directional weaponry. Here, all the weaponry is pure 360. It makes sense that it might be mounted on some sort of turret. It also makes sense, though, and if you look, I don't know, it depends on what you're looking at, but think about tanks or something like that. Yeah, they might go through a lot of work to put that main weapon on a turret so that it has some capability to shift around or whatever, but the flexibility of, like, the firepower of, say, a machine gun or a lighter gun on it or something might not be that big a deal. And there are guns that are, you know, built in for longer range combat where they don't put it into a turret. It's more like a self-propelled artillery or something. It could do a lot of damage to an enemy tank if it gets the lineup and the fire for it, but it's really, and I think some of the tank destroyers are this way, it's really something that's built, you know, to fire not in close combat. So the concept of trying to close with the enemy and everything becomes more interesting. Here, there's really nothing. I don't see anything that like causes you to do anything except line up and start shooting. And that's one of the problems with this games in particular, is that the tactical game just isn't rich enough to express the kind of tactical options that you'd want to have. You know, if you think about Traveler combat even, there, most of the turrets and whatnot are placed on, they have limited arcs. Now, that's not expressed in the game very well. The way it's done is a certain percentage of your turrets could hit at any given time if you're playing with high guard or something along those lines. But you can immediately project that, yeah, you're not going to be able to get all your firepower in at any one time. And so you could see tracking it with something like an SFB SSD or something. I don't know if any of the Traveler supplements did anything like that, right? I think the closest that it came to was the High Guard stuff, which said, hey, if you're a big enough ship, you can only get so many shots in. Because, you know, honestly, you could rotate a ship and get all its turrets in alignment over the course of a turn or something like that. You could just have it spinning. There was also, though, the concept of the spinal mount, which really would make a difference, even if you were if you were playing with the basic original Traveler combat system. Although you need to have high guard to have spinal mounts, but the idea of the spinal mount or the weapons bays, which are kind of fixed situations, and you can see where those would have to be facing in a given direction in order to get the fire and whatnot. So again, you know, what you've got here feels so easy. Now, I think the bigger part is the shielding. Because if you think about, and I think tactical attack vector, I think that also has this kind of situation. If you think about the way that a ship is going to be operating under the circumstances, all the weapons could face forward for all you care, right? As long as you can burn in any direction, as long as you can create a vector and a movement of any direction you like, you can just spin the ship around to make sure all the weapons are facing the enemy you want to shoot at. You couldn't reduce your firepower. I'm not saying that this is at all unrealistic, right? I think it's completely realistic that the vector of movement has nothing to do with what way you're facing, as long as the engines can move you in any direction relative to your front facing. And that's where I think the game could be very interesting, is if you made the front of the ship where all the firepower kind of comes from, and reduced the firepower depending on where you came, where you're coming out of that's not the front, right? And the engines can only thrust you in the direction opposite to what your firepower is. And of course, you know, you could build ships that protected from the rear and stuff like that. And it might make sense to put some light firepower in the rear to pick off missiles and whatnot. Different game than this, though. This one, all your firepower is always available. All your thrust is always available. The two have no real impact on each other. What did we do? We just did movement. I think I've babbled enough that I want to take a little break. We skip down to the joint burn phase. That's the only real thing, decision-wise, you know, other than firing choices. This is interesting. I'm at a range where I have certain advantages. I can only pick on this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, actually I can shoot out all kind of things. I may want to pull to a stop simply in order to keep my advantage of the fact that they're at different ranges and none of them are all that close. So I think I'm going to take a look at the burn. I've got a 4 burn that I could get rid of. Now, here's the thing. Burn capacity for miners is only 2. Catapults is only 1. The transports is faster. They can go 3. I can do a 1 burn on everything. And that's what I'm going to do here. How do I feel about, and this is again done secretly, how do I feel about these guys? Again, they feel like they're going to get overrun no matter what. So I'm not going to do anything with the Martians still. But all of these, are going to expend a fuel. And we just mark those off. I spaced things out a little bit more here, simply because everything's so tiny. I'd want to blow this up and make it a little bigger. But there was a, you know, like if I could print it out, I might blow it up to the size so that one sheet contains one of these entire things instead of going 4 on each. I don't know. It's hard to tell. Like there's a real advantage to tightly packing stuff so that I can get more ships on. Because even this battle is using up quite a few. Quite a bit of this sheet. Okay, so we dropped down to 3s. These didn't go. The base, of course, can't burn at all. And now we're down to combat. Once again, who goes first? I don't remember which way I was going. I think blue was going to go first, but odds blue, even red. I don't remember what I called it. Okay, red's going to get first shot here. And again, I've got a single fire group. However, let's take a look at these, because I'm just making sure that I've got this right. Why are these where they are? I think these are supposed to be tighter packed, because that's the x-axis. I fucked up. Okay, it doesn't matter. So, these are fine. Now I'm confused, and you shut up, you bitchy bird. This is the x-axis. That should be fine. The y-axis, yeah, I think everything's right now. Okay, so we get first shot, and we can create a fire group. We have a base which has a fire value of 6. What else do I have? I have miners. I could boost my fire value up to 10. Or so 6 and 2 there for distance. That's 2, 6, 0 gives me a distance of 6. So I'd be using the same range here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's see about this. 1, 2. That'll be 6 and 2 again, right? 1, 2. 6 and 2. Yeah. So if I pick on this with 1, 2. What's the other one? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'll throw this in. So now I've got 2, 4, 6 on the 6th table. And we're over here. And I should mark these, because again, I'm not going to remember. Facing doesn't matter. So plus 6. That gives me an 8. And I'm at range 6 as well. Okay. That gets me an L2. L2 is laser capacity, so that catapult now has lost 2 of its laser. And this happens immediately. I'm down to a 2 strength laser now, which is a big difference. Come over to here. 3 ships would be, well, I may want to hold off on firing this because it's not my biggest anymore. So this is 3, 6, 8. Let's see what we got here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 and 3. Let's see what that works out to. That's going to work out to 6. That's not bad. I forgot to drop the 2 off the distance. Shit. So I was here. Actually, that would do no damage then. Oops. All right, well, that changes things. I always forget the fire group advantage on that. Yeah, okay. Let's just put that there. Keep it in the same placing. Which means I have my full fire. I'm going to use the big ship with 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 again at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 5, 1. So I am once again at an 8 fire. That gets me the 10 chart. And what was my range? My range was 5 or 6? I don't remember. I think it was 6. Minus 2 is 4. Oh, that's not death. You get that big 6 on the second die roll, and you're like, oh, did I kill him? Nope. And that will be, I fired, say, these 3. Yeah. Okay. Back over to red. I'm going to fire the big bad base because I don't want the base to get blown up, even if he's not firing it. 6, I am going to shoot, I think, at one of these ships that hasn't shot yet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 2. That'll be a range of 6. That's fine. So I've got 6 at 6. I can't create a fire group anymore because I only have 5 ships total. 3 of them have fired. What did I say? 6 at 6? I think so. That's 7. Not a good table to be on, I think. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff. A 1. IL. That's impaired launch. 1 box under the launch is marked off. I don't have to worry about that. I could mark it, but I don't want to do it. It has no effect on play, and it won't affect any of the repair capacity. I mean, yes, I could repair that, but unlike SFB and some other systems, when you hit something that's not there, you just don't do anything in this. In a lot of games, there's some sort of, yeah, well, you hit the ship somewhere, you're going to do something, some structural damage or something. Something's going to happen. Nope, not in this game. Okay, so that was the base. I'll cover that up. And now I got the second shot over here, which is 3, 6, 8. Where do I want to shoot? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. See, do I want to pick on this thing still? It's fired. This is the only one that hasn't fired. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And 3, how bad is that? That's out at like range 8. And a lot of firepower. I don't think this is going to hurt much. How about I go for the base? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 3. That's range 7. With a minus 2 gets me to range 5. And we've got an 8 shot. 8 shot gets me all the way up. Range 5, a 6 will destroy it. But a 1 will do nothing. Lots of randomness here. I could actually be rolling 2 dice at the same time. I feel like this is actually helpful. Okay, these have all fired. I've got 1 ship with a firepower of 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's the 3 table. At range 7, that gets rid of a burn capacity on the catapult. This is a big deal because that drops my burn capacity to 0. This is not going to be able to maneuver any longer. As long as that stands. Okay. But after combat, immediately comes repair. And we shift down. There's no damage at all taken by the Martians. Is that right? There's the repair hit. Over here, we've got a burn on the catapult. And that's it. I've got a 50-50. I don't remember what it was. I think it's 1 to 3 it repairs. It does not repair, but it'll get a chance to repair every turn, which is hey, once you start firing at something and picking pieces of it off, you want to get that ship crippled. You want to keep firing at it. It doesn't remain weak. Like I lowered it and now it has no burn capacity, which means if I want to keep this fire group, I have to stay at this speed, right? Now, I could just have 3 of my ships operating at that speed and have another fire group operating faster or slower or whatever. But since I put the transports on the edges, that's not going to work very well. And now we hit joint movement, and again, let's clear this shit off. It's not doing me any good anymore. Or something along those lines. And then everything moves forward. 3. 1, 2, 3. We should be like 2 away if that's right. 1, 2, 3. And a nice thing about this, I just like vector movement so much more. It's the only thing that makes sense under, Newtonian physics, essentially, right? Sure. You've got to do all kind of hand-wavy magical stuff and pretend that warp drives, mean something. And it's just, you have nothing as a frame of reference. You're looking at like a duel of wizards, essentially, when you're looking at a game like SFB. When you're looking at a game like this, you're looking at real, actual, like, things that we can grasp and understand how the physics should work, and we're not making shit up just whole cloth, right? I like that a lot. I just wish that there was something, there was enough richness to this system, not to the system, but to the scenarios in terms of ships, in terms of the weaponry they have. This is the problem I run into when I start looking at most of the game systems that use a more complex representation of realistic vector, mechanics and whatnot, is that they tend to make really, really bland choices in terms of weaponry. Even Universe. Universe has this incredibly, Delta V uses a 2-dimensional version of this. I didn't remember that. Somebody commented because I couldn't remember. I didn't think it was 3D. It uses a 2D version of this. I don't think it's as good a vector system. I think this one's actually richer. It's easier to explain the Delta V one. Is I think what it does, but I feel like it fails, whereas this one succeeds. Like, if I recall correctly, again, I don't have Universe up here, and somewhere or another, I don't think I have Delta V. I think if I do, it's in my Universe box. Like, I threw it in there for extra counters or whatever, which is a shame. But my memory of it was, it doesn't do it quite right. It fails. It tries to simplify the gameplay, which I don't think is that complicated. The hard part of this is understanding the chart, right? Once you get the chart and how to read it, both for the true distance and for the burn components, it works perfectly fine. But Universe, is supposed to be a traveler kind of replacement or whatever. They put out their own little battle game ahead of time and everything, but it's so limited. The weaponry in it is about as limited as it is here. Now, you could argue the same with Traveler, that the weaponry is just as limited. Like, in the first 3 little books, the weaponry was really limited, and the problem is Universe didn't catch fire. The one thing that people liked about Universe was the skill system, and the skill system was actually, unfortunately, like most role-playing games, far less realistic than the original Traveler. The Traveler one is what everybody hated about Traveler, was like, well, I don't learn anything. Yeah, you do. You don't learn anything at unrealistically high speeds. Like, there are some issues with the Traveler system, but like Zero level skills, which is jack of all trades capability, should be able to be trained relatively quickly for certain abilities. But the problem is there's different kinds of things, right? Anyway, I'm getting so far off this. But yeah, most of the SPI systems that played around with this kind of cool vector movement don't have a lot of different weapon types. Attack vector does not have a lot of cool different weapon systems and everything. They're focusing so much on getting the design of the core game right. They just didn't spend that extra, and it can take a lot of extra effort, time to make the game rich enough that you want to play it. Now, one of the problems, of course, is, the magical shields that Star Trek has is also kind of a fake thing, right? It's just as made up as the warp drive. So that's one of the issues where you're kind of seeing, the decision to keep things close to reality. And that's one of the places where sort of the Traveler stuff starts to get a little bit richer. Unfortunately, the weapon systems provided in High Guard can't really be easily translated to the original combat system. And that's where the richness would come from. So again, it feels like, and I think actually that the guys who did this made a Traveler-based version of it, this Ad Astra Games. I think they made a Traveler-based version of it. I seem to remember getting into a discussion. They were looking for people who were willing to cover it or something. And I tried to put myself forward as, look, I haven't been able to crack attack vector, but I might be able to for something that's richer, because it's just kind of too simplistic in terms of the weapons and everything in choice, so you don't have a lot of tactical choices. All right. And it's not most of the space combat games that really work are, SFB is the biggest example, but there are others. Talon is up there and everything. They feel more like naval combat in terms of getting arcs into place and armor or shielding or whatever it is that you have to penetrate and everything. It feels more like playing a game of Ironclads or something, which is a very good game. Or Car Wars. Another great naval combat game. Hey, they got Boat Wars. But when you're looking at the games that try to get it right in terms of the system that I'm aware of. Now, I have to keep looking. I have some other games that I've picked up that are supposed to have some kind of vector combat in them. But most of the ones that I look at just work too simplistically, and they're working on what almost comes down to a fighter-based model, a fighter plane-based model. Now, what works well in fighter plane models, at least for me, is the World War I stuff, where... What's the interesting thing? Getting your guns lined up on the enemy. So you're doing all kind of maneuvering operations because your guns are so fixed, right? But you're not seeing that in these games. You're seeing something else. I'm talking a shitload about other systems and everything, and this is really material that belongs in the review or whatever. I can't work that way. I have to speak about what I'm seeing when I'm seeing it, what I'm thinking when I'm thinking it. So, you're not getting a great introduction into what is really a pretty fucking simple game. It takes, for the tactical game here, it takes a fair amount to grasp the concepts of it. Not as much as I think Attack Vector does. I'm really still terrified if we start moving around on the Z-axis, what that's going to do, and whether it fucking adds anything to the game, right? Because one of the issues... I love my Lensman series stuff where they discuss weapons and why you have to use certain formations against them in 3 dimensions and whatnot. You don't see a lot of formation work in air flight. It's usually, hey, keep things supporting, within range to support fire and everything. Feels, again, kind of like midway for the placement of the ships. on the battle board, so that they can support each other against other planes or whatever. But you almost in both the Lensman series and in trying to remember the other one that handled Ender's Game, where you're talking about these clever stratagems that are really these tactical formations and whatnot that bring to bear new weapons types and everything. I wanted to see the kind of differences that weapons types bring to different types of formations. The only game that I saw that dealt with formations so far in my exploration of anything, SFB kind of does with the ISC ships, and but they work fine in two dimensions, and they actually just, you can ignore what they have for formations there. It doesn't work. But something I played recently, a GDW game, had where you pick various formations, and it works sort of like a counter chip pick in Empires and Arms or whatever, where different formations affect your chance of getting certain firepower in certain ways. But what I really wanted to see is a tactical game that proves the point, that proves the case. And I don't think this can do it, just because there's no real advantage to not being all stacked in the same hex or whatever. Anyway. And that's why I probably discarded the tactical game and just played the strategic game when I last did this. I'm still on the fence about it, because I think this gives a better story. But do I want to spend the extra time? I don't know. And all the breadth and all the words about like tactical systems and why they don't work for me. So we did the joint movement. We're on the withdrawal. No, missile burn. Joint burn. It's time to make a decision. If I want to keep my formations, I can't do a burn. I'm going to hold and just stay with what I am. For these guys, though, I think we may just do some. 3 ships have to be together to fire. I'm going to do, on this ship here, which one is this? 221. I'm going to do a 1-point burn on that ship. And that also goes over here because I'm operating in the x-axis, and therefore everything has to work there. That was 221, burns a fuel. We're allowed to burn 2. So that's all we see in terms of decisions. At this point, after they've been programmed, both players can see what the burns are. The only time that anything's secret simultaneous type stuff is when you're actually programming the burns, at the moment that you're programming them. Very, very workable system. And again, so in terms of speed of play and everything, what do you have compared to, say, SFB? In SFB, you have an impulse by impulse. You're moving each ship and making decisions all the fucking time. Here you're not doing that. What do you lose? Well, you lose opportunities to fire at certain ranges, which doesn't make a damn bit of difference in this game. But if there were more weapon types and whatnot, there might be optimal ranges that you could be in where you wouldn't want to sort of, so the movement in this is all at once, so the entire, all the ships sort of jump forward, whatever their burn value is, as opposed to that sort of contiguous movement that SFB allows. You could certainly build in an impulse system with this, though, and put firing opportunities and everything in if you wanted to make it a little bit more complex. And I think that's what Attack Vector does, because it's got so many goddamn rules. Okay. Joint burn, missile and fire, combat. All right. Odd as Aries. The Martians get to shoot first. In terms of fire groups, I've got, or possible fire groups, formations, I've got 1 formation here and 1 formation here. I'm not sure bases can be in formation. Let me see. Brief scan, I didn't see any prohibition on it. So the Martians get to shoot first. What do we have? We have a base at 6, and these others are all 2s. I'm going to fire the bases 6 at his big ship at range 3. All on its own. I'll do a fire group with the other 3. 6 gives me 7. Range of 3 at 3. I hit a laser on his catapult. That's the first laser hit, and that's going to reduce his firepower for this round. That may be more important than burn, because we're flying in. We get over here. What do I want to fire? Well, my laser is now down to 3. That's already fired. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I don't know what to do because I gotta put 3 ships together. Ideally, I should have positioned things a little differently, but you learn these things. What is the distance of these? Well, I want to fire the big guy. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 at a range of 1, 2, 1, 2. It's going to be 3, I'm guessing. Yeah. This is kind of annoying. So what is my total? It's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. At a range of 3, range of 1 because it's a fire group. Ooh. That's beginning to have a big effect. We're at 11. We do a burn 3. That has no effect because we're hitting a base. Ah, too bad. All right, now we're going to fire these 3. The range is 1, 2, 3, 2. I bet you that's still 4. 2, 3, 4. Yep. But that drops down to a 2. And we're firing 6. That's a 7. Range is 2. We get a 4. We manage one of the few misses. Ares is getting really lucky here with what's happening to them. All right. And then our final, over here we've got this. I could fire a fire group at the 8 points. That'll be 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 3, 4 at 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. 3, 4 at 8. It's 5 hexes. It gets down to 3 hexes. I'm going to do that. So an 8 shot at 3 hexes. I'm shooting the last remaining thing. That's a 12. At 3 hexes is a miss. Whee! And then this final one is 2. I'm going to keep picking on the same big ship. 1, 2, 3, 4 hexes away, or 4 cubes away. Cubes. Plus 2 gets me a 3. The big 6 doesn't do anything on here. We clean up. We hit repair phase. Who's got hits? Is the repair hit? I don't think we've hit any Martians here. How is this happening? God, it's hard to hit anything in this game. I'm going to try to repair my laser. I think that's more important. So again, 1 to 3 is my repair number. We still don't get it, so our ships are weakened. Joint movement. And now the mess begins. These are all in the same space. Gets worse. All kind of exciting stuff that shows up like in SFB, dogfighting between fighters and stuff like that. Those kind of rules, there's no place for them here. And it makes sense, and it's fine, I like it, but there's no place, because there's no concept of like fixed weaponry coming out the front or whatever. And there kind of shouldn't be, right? Again, as long as you've got engines that can thrust in any direction. And that's the weird thing. That's the thing that I'm kind of like, I'm not so sure about that. Like, they're supposed to be chemical thrusters. They probably get you, yeah, you might have a little bit of modification, etc., but they probably don't give you a lot of capacity to just like reverse your engines, essentially. But who knows? You know, they could be directed as sort of pods that are hanging off the ship and are you know, it can go in either direction. And then you've got some tiny little maneuvering thrusters that allow you to spin in any direction. And so all that matters is your velocity, your current vector, your velocity, and facing. And that allows you to shoot at anything. And it feels like everything's facing in one direction weapon-wise, simply because you can and must fire all your lasers at one enemy. All right. I'm beginning to feel like this battle is the amount of video I'm going to put into this, and the battle is going to go very long. So maybe I will talk less, I hope. But in either side, I think we're going to go here, and we are doing. I thought I was doing Vesta. I must be doing. Yeah. We're going to call this Pallas 1. The secret that I failed to reveal. I do this all the time. Like, I bumble around a topic, and this happens at work too. And anybody who kind of is following the leaps or whatever knows exactly what I'm talking about. Sometimes they know more than what I'm talking about and assume that I'm saying better things than I am, but that's a different matter. But yeah, I sort of bumble around at the edges of the topic without ever stating directly what I'm talking about. And in this case, I'm talking about, I'm going to load the fucking video up. But it's like, and then I'm confused when, you know, they don't quite understand, like they completely misunderstand whatever the whole concept, whatever the whole discussion was even about. Oh, well.